you believe that we started recording right in the middle of 2020 with all of the COVID and lockdowns going on around us, unable to meet up? So like many a young gentleman, we turned to the internet for our entertainment. Tried to find a place where we could meet up and talk about the good, the bad, and that time that Stu saw a pelican on the canal. In order to facilitate our dreams of answering all of the big questions in film, and after a few attempts at recording via other methods to various levels of success, we found Zencastr, a super easy web-based one-stop shop for recording. Log in and you're ready to record in a matter of seconds. It doesn't take a tech genius to get high quality audio or video. And on top of that, the one time we have had an issue, the fact that the multi-layered backups are stored locally means it's easily fixed all in browser. There are plenty of tools you need when you start podcasting, so let Zencastr take that headache away as it offers a place to record, edit and distribute all from one website. Any lazy bones Jones can pick up and play and have studio quality audio or 4K video put out for the world to see when using Zencastr. Go to zencastr.com/pricing and use our code CAGEFIGHTING and you'll get 30% off your first month of any Zencastr paid plan. We want you to have the same easy experiences we do for all our podcasting and content needs. It's time to share your story. And now, hit the music. Hello and welcome to Cage Fighting. It's your main man Andy Gillard here. Hope everyone is keeping well in the world right now.
Hola everyone, hello. The tide is turning. Matthew will be back soon. Who knows? Everything's going swimmingly. Don't worry. His mother, baby, and him are all well. He's put it all on Instagram, so we can talk about it now. Anyway, we talked about it last week. It's just magnificent to see. I have watched the first part of the first episode of the first night of WrestleMania. It is get me in. Go admit it.
Drawing you back in, is it, Stu?
I've watched 2 matches and they took like an hour and 15 minutes. And having not watched it for years and years and years now. Well, pre-COVID was the last time I was properly into it. For that 18 months. And I was sitting there with a big smile on my face enjoying it. So, who knows? Maybe I'm regressing back to childhood again. Who knows?
Fair enough. I haven't watched it, and I haven't watched WWE at this point for 6 years nearly, I think. Maybe. It was definitely pre-pandemic. I've seen the odd bit here and there, but I don't watch it, to be honest. It's not my... You know what it is with WWE? It's just all style and no substance for me. That's where it falls down. It looks brilliant and they put the money... you can see where the money gets spent. But I don't know. I just like wrestling. I don't like soap opera stuff. I think that's the line for me. It's a little bit too much soap opera and not enough wrestling for my taste, personally.
Yeah, it's so... Everyone knows what I mean by I say it's so American.
Yeah, but it really is, isn't it?
But that's not a bad thing in this case because wrestling is a silly child sport at the end of the day. But there's explosions and there's big screens and there's lights and flames and people in costumes. It's like sport panto, which is why I like it. This is why I liked it before, but it's just a time thing as always.
That's the biggest issue because it's even if you just want to follow the main shows, that's at least 5 hours a week, not including pay-per-views and stuff on the weekend. It's a big commitment, and I wouldn't have the time to follow that and AEW and TNA and New Japan like I used to do. It was pretty much, at least there was one wrestling show per night back then, and it's just too much. It's impossible to keep on top of.
So the irony is that you used to this when you were single, but now you look like you're single.
Thing is that, like, Katie likes AEW as well, so we can watch that together, so it's fine. So that certainly helps.
There is a reason why we don't do this on video. Mainly time and effort.
Yeah.
But it is getting very big. You are resembling Bray Wyatt at this point.
I mean, in fairness, this is shorter than it's been in a long time as well. Because I did trim before. It is a little bit, to be honest, like I washed it and stuff yesterday and it just needs the hot comb putting through it and putting back in shape. That's all it is.
He's talking about his beard, by the way.
Oh, yeah. But yeah, like this is shorter than it's been in a long time. But the problem is I get this bit where it twiggles out. It's like a cowlick. This is perfect content for an audio medium, isn't it, this? So, like, you have to keep trying to cut it back into a shape. Honestly, it's more effort than when I used to have hair. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, see, this the thing. I don't have to worry about either of these things, and both are not through choice.
Right. Anyway, I suppose we'd better talk about film and stuff. So, first part of the episode, we're going to talk about a film which we have reviewed called Swede Caroline, and then the second half of the episode, we're just going to be answering one question, which is what makes a good bad guy. So first up then, Swede Caroline is a British film production which is due to be released in the cinemas on the 19th of April. So next week, I think, is the date on that one. Yep, so this episode's going out on the 9th, so it'll be next Friday that the film will drop. The movie itself, it's, as I say, it's a British film. It's a mockumentary style one. Stu, have you ever seen Confetti?
It rings a bell. I thought you were going to say Confessions of then, and obviously we've seen all of them. Like Robin Asquith, let's get him on. I'm not sure. Remind me.
I feel like it's probably one you would. So it is a group of couples who try and win a wedding, and it's the documentary made about them. It's got Martin Friedman, Jessica Hines, the Queen Olivia Colman, Robert Webb, Steve Mangan, Jason Watkins, Jimmy Carr. Like, it's got a lot of British people in there. It's this film, Swede Caroline, very much reminded me of that. It is a very, very British film that I imagine people who aren't born within the British Isles will be utterly bemused at how they've made a film about, making the biggest fucking
marrow.
What's the marrow? That's the one I was looking for. I was going to say pumpkin, but one and the same. Like, it is the most British thing ever, isn't it? This type of small village making massive fruit and veg. Like, it's so weird a concept to make a film about, isn't it?
I mean, is it a real place? I never looked that up.
I didn't look, actually, to be fair.
Because
not one I'd heard of, but that doesn't mean it doesn't exist.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing with all these little tiny villages where you drive through, you don't even drive through them, but you see the sign off the motorway and you think that's not a real place. And
yeah,
you've got no reason to go there other than if you're like on an away trip. I went on Burnley last week. We ended up in Timperley. I think it was Timperley. So I was saying Timperley, and I thought, no, we haven't been to Israel. But just outside Altrincham, never in a million years would anyone choose to go there. But there was this great pub called on the no one needs to know this stuff, but there was a great pub on its own on a cross junction, and so we pulled up, and there's 50 of us, and we had like just over an hour. So Russ got off, and we just went to see any chance we can come in for an hour because we were running late, stupid traffic, or in Knutsford, whatever. And the guy was saying, well, you can, but there's only me on, so he's going to tell you all, so you have to be patient. You might get one, you might get two. But he was amazing. He was like straight from the set of Cocktail. He was doing three orders at once. I mean, everyone got served in 10 minutes. When I had 3 pints in 50 minutes, it was amazing. But it's one of them places where it's so remote that he didn't have any ales on because they drank all the real ales over Easter, and he wasn't going to put him back on it until the Friday because there's no point, because no one goes in on the week.
I feel like places like that, they're almost as mythical as Narnia, aren't they? These kind of places. They just exist in their own little world almost, and to an outsider, it must be utterly balmy to see.
Yeah, and that's what this place is like. And you think some of the characters in this are straight out of Narnia, but
Yeah.
it's almost like, because I don't know who these people are other than Fay Ripley. I wouldn't have known the names of them, but as soon as I saw them and I heard them speak, it's like a who's who of British TV on Coronation Street and that kind of thing. But they're just they're just naturally funny people, but in the most British way possible. And I was watching one of the Kind of Funny, I think it might have been the Kind of Funny podcast itself, a few weeks ago, and they had he should be a friend of the show if he knew we existed, Raoul Coley. He was on there and he mentioned Partridge, and they had no idea what it was. They knew obviously who Steve Coogan was, but they had no idea who Alan Partridge was or the whole thing about it. And there was a couple of other Brits on there as well. So the back of the net and all the usual, the phrases come out.
Yeah.
And they were just baffled. Wait, why is this funny? It doesn't matter. You can't explain.
The funniest thing, yeah.
Yeah, you can't explain why it is funny. It just is. And that is what this film is.
Yeah. So, I mean, you mentioned like it's got the who's who of British TV. It's faces, or it's names you might not recognise, but I think it's definitely faces you will. It's fronted by Jo Hartley, who is the main woman who plays Caroline in this. And you'd know her from Eddie the Eagle. She was in the Eddie the Eagle film. She was in This Is England way back in 2006. She was in David Brent, Life on the Road, Dead Man's Shoes. Like, she's done a lot of work in a lot of serious and non-serious British stuff. That's very much her bread and butter. And she's always great at it. She manages to really hold the screen, I think, whenever she's on. For someone who isn't necessarily known as a big star, she does have this feel about her that she can pull things together, I think. I think she did really well in this, because there's a lot of constituent parts going on which are utterly bonkers. Like, we've been attacked when someone's stealing the marrow. You've got the stuff with the swingers. You've got, facing up to Fay Ripley and all this kind of craziness going on. But she never feels out of her depth in this. Like, she's never washed over. I thought she was brilliant in this. I really enjoyed this performance from her.
Yeah, like when they're going with the guns, and you just say, and he's there with his stupid balaclava on, and you go, and it's the neighbour, and she's, all right, like, it's just a random thing. She's got this. What was it? It was like some flare gun or something that she had in her hand.
Yeah,
and she's just talking to, like a coffee morning. It's so brilliant. Again, like we did last week, I was trying to describe this to people to try and sell it. Not that we have to. This is not a thing. And when we get sent a shit film, we'll slag it off.
Yeah.
But this is, if you like Partridge and stuff like that, you will love this. It's obviously not the best film in the world, but there's bits in it that, there's just quotes, and it's not spoiler because it's so out of context anyway. I just where it's just this meth, Caroline. That's not one of the fun drugs. And I was pissing myself, and he's just standing over the computer when they're looking for something. It just comes out with it, and it's the delivery is spot on. It
is. It's by treating it so deadpan, it made everything so much funnier, I thought, in it. And then I don't think it's the kind of, I didn't laugh out loud at it, but I smiled out loud at it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, through, she was like, that's really good. I really like that. It wasn't enough to, like, proper give me a rollicking laugh, but there was the recognition of stupidity that just made me smile throughout. This feels like it's the perfect Sunday night during the summer, where you just want to chill out, watch something silly and fun that just reminds you a little bit of somewhere closer to home. And it gave me that perfectly when I watched it this evening. So, yeah, it's a big thumbs up for me on this film.
Yeah, it's like the mockumentary version of Heartbeat.
That's exactly it. Yeah, that's a perfect description.
And if they want to quote me on that and use it in the distribution, then they can do. You get to what we've already said. Partridge is the obvious one, but like things like David Brent, Life on the Road, which I actually did enjoy that film.
Yeah, it's all right.
It is exactly what it is, and that whole thing. I mean, he was obviously more self-aware doing that one than he was in the first series of The Office. But there's a lot. This is why I don't think it'll work anywhere else, because there is absolute cringe moments, which is, I'll say it's the most British thing possible, but it really is. You don't seem to get other countries growing massive fruit and veg and taking it so seriously and giving them names and stealing them and breeding them. Not in a perfect way.
Yeah, so I'm just going to have a quick look. So for American mockumentaries, to try and find anything that would be even remotely close. And I suppose really you have to look at someone like Christopher Guest. So the nearest one where they do something, I say mundane. Mundane is such a, it sounds like a negative word, but it's not. But, growing marrows is a mundane activity that they make funny. The closest I've got really would be something like Best in Show, which is about, like an American version of Crufts. Everything else in America, it's always slightly heightened. It always has to be slightly bigger. Whereas with this, they very much play down to the smallest possible story they can tell. And I don't think if this was made anywhere else in the world, this is the film that would have come out at the end of it. It would have had to be the biggest thing ever. It would be enough to just be growing a big marrow. It's who's got the best farm. It would have been the next level up almost. But I liked the fact that it was pared down to, to the smallest thing in the world, but it was the biggest thing to those people involved in it. And I think that worked really well for it.
Did you ever go to was it a 3-county show or 6-county show or something like that?
No.
Just got to have to double check what this is. It's a something county show anyway, and we went with school. And it is like that where people are like walking around with their prize lambs and stuff. 3 county.
Is this like a harvest festival kind of deal, is it?
3 county showground, I was right. Is it in Northampton? Oh, Great Malvern. So the 3 county show, there's an events calendar for it. Yeah, so they've got 3 counties championship dog show, Royal 3 county show. I was fucking right. Told you. A bumper crop of farming fun and food and family fun. Yeah, food festival, plant-based. Yeah, so it's that kind of thing. You can buy tickets for it. There's a farming village, family activities, charity stuff, smallholders village with the pictures of llamas, special guests, shopping, rural interests, the kind of thing that, again, the most British thing possible. How much is it to get in? Let's have a look. So for general admission on the 14th of June, if anyone's interested, £23 in advance, 28 quid on show day.
Dear me, that's a dear do, isn't it?
So watch thrilling main arena displays, get the chance to interact with 6,000 animals and learn all about farming and livestock, and feast on the best produce the 3 counties has to offer in the Food and Drink Festival. So again, we went to that with school once. I enjoyed it. It's fun. It's like going to Cosford, but for farming. And there's probably a reason why Clarkson's Farm is the biggest show in the world when it comes out. Not just here, and not just because it's him either, which obviously helps. But there's something very niche about that program that should never work, even with him and the way he is.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I don't get the appeal myself. I'm not one for gardening and farm work or anything like that, in spite of how I might look at the moment. But there is something like inherently that just draws you into that kind of comfort TV almost. And that's what this is. It's, like I said, it's that nice arm round the shoulder reminding you of times gone by, I think. Yeah, I liked it. I did enjoy it. I got to admit, I went in with not very high expectations, and they were thoroughly exceeded with this one. So yeah, it's 2 thumbs up from me anyway.
It's almost like the summer version of a Christmas film.
Yeah, I get that. I get where you're coming from in that completely.
Yeah, it's very harmless. It doesn't take itself seriously whatsoever, but at the same time, it does, and it's very believable. And it puts a massive smile on your face from start to finish.
Absolutely. If there was any film that you could tell people, as we did last week, if you liked that film, you'll probably get on with this. Is there anything? We've mentioned Partridge. I think David Brent in The Office is probably another good one to come along with it. It gave me feel. I don't know if you've ever seen Prevenge or Sightseers, which are Alice Lowe films, which was the only reason, when I saw Alice Lowe's name on this, I jumped at the chance to get us this screen because I love Alice Lowe. Again, she writes very British stuff, but Prevenge is where her baby starts to turn crazy and tells her to start killing people. And Sightseers is they go on a sightseeing holiday around the UK and then things turn disastrous. And they're very British as well. And I feel like if you've seen those and like those, you'd get on quite well with this film. Is there anything that you can think of that you'd add to that list, Stu?
I mean, the first things that it's not exactly the same, but stuff like Ali G and Borat and Bruno and them kind of things where they have got a more broad appeal. But they did start off as characters who were taking the piss out of the public in a very British way. So the original Ali G show, from that point of view, where people had no idea whatsoever. But if people haven't seen it, but it's still on Netflix, I think, the Kunk on.
Yeah, of course. Kunk on everything, isn't it? Yes, that's a good show, that is. And I've just thought of another one as well, This Country, which obviously is about, is it Bristolian or Somerset? It's somewhere like that.
It's a war country, yeah.
It is. I feel, again, that probably fits in quite well with this one. So this one's out on the 19th of April in the cinemas. So I think if you've got nothing better to do, I genuinely think there are definitely worse ways that you can spend a nice sunny Friday afternoon than going to see this, to be honest. Yeah, do it.
And it does manage somehow to rejuvenate that bastard song as well. I'm well and truly sick of, and with the Euros coming up, we know it's going to be played everywhere yet again. But now I've got something to reference it against rather than England being pathetic. So
yeah, I did find myself humming along to it, and I don't like that song or Neil Diamond anyway. But I was like, okay, yeah, they used it quite nicely in the film, I thought. So yeah, it's decent. So yeah, April, Friday 19th, go see it. Welcome back. So, as we said before, it's been a bit hit and miss how we've run the podcast so far this year. What we were going to be doing is doing question casts and then throwing in the odd episode where it's literally just having a longer form conversation about one particular topic. So a bit like how we used to do the hot take corner before, where we'd have, a few minutes talk. We thought we'd actually extrapolate that out a little bit more and discuss topics in a bit more depth. So this week we've just got one question really, which we wanted to answer, which is, what makes a good bad guy? This was something that Mike Evans, one of our listeners, got in contact with us and mentioned before about being interested in sort of like the duality within film, like good guys and bad guys and how it all leans. So next week we're going to do an episode giving our top 5 favourite bad guys. I think when we do that, it's going to have to be bad guys, non-horror, because I feel like that's a separate list on its own if we do horror. So we'll just look at antagonists in general next week. And then next month we're going to do a heroes month. So we'll be talking about what makes a good guy, I suppose, will be the topic of the month for that one. So for this one then, Stu, what makes a good bad guy? I think the best place to start really is at the beginning. What is the villain that, when you cast your mind back, is the one that was there right at the start, the first one that springs to mind for you?
I was trying to think of this, and if this is one of them things where it's forced memory, which I'm guessing a lot of it is. Well, we've talked about The Fly before, but I think, when did Who Framed Roger Rabbit come out?
1988.
So I would have been 5, 6, so say 6, 7 by the time I first watched it on telly. That was what came into mind straight away.
Yeah, without any doubt.
Yeah, and you say, well, I mean, there's different ways we can go with this. I mean, what makes a bad guy? If what makes a bad guy is he scares the living shit out of you, then this is the number one, and this was the first one that I can remember.
Yeah, it's the one on my list. Judge Stu, to this day, Judge Stu is still terrifying. I watched Roger Rabbit a couple of years back, and it still holds up, and he still scares the shit out of me. Like, there's two bits that always get me with Roger Rabbit. When he puts the shoe in the dip, and you hear the shoe screaming, that's awful. That haunts my nightmares. And when he's been flattened by that big machine with that one big wheel, I don't know what those machines are called. You know, where they flatten the tarmac usually.
They're just steamrollers, are they?
Is it steamroller? Is that the term for it?
That's what they used to be called.
Yeah. Yeah, so when he's been hit with a steamroller and then he gets back up and he's like, you know, almost one-dimensional because he's so thin and he's flopping around and then his eyes turn. It's terrifying. And it's the not understanding any of why it's happening because, especially as a kid, you only really know what you experience. And that is not anything you've ever experienced as a child at that point because it's clearly, it's cartoon. It's cartoon come to life. And that has stayed with me to this very day. Like, so we're talking 30 plus years later, it's still terrifying.
Yeah, I mean, they obviously put these things in front of us thinking, it's a cartoon, who cares? And then, like, you got this, and then you got its partner in crime, fucking Watership Down, and that bastard evil rabbit. Exactly the same thing. Scumbag.
It is very strange to see that, isn't it? Because those are two very abstract things, really. Like, we don't have talking rabbits to be scared of in the world. And also, we don't have people who could survive being literally steamrolled. But they are things that I think have stuck with us for quite a long time at this point now. And it's really weird how it does sort of lay on. Well, I feel like a lot of my horror tastes have really been informed by someone like Judge Stu, having that nefarious evil shadow over the whole world. And it is weird, but obviously out of the film that is very family friendly for the vast majority of it, there is that element of pure evilness to it almost, I think. So, in regards to villains, do you like it when a villain has a reason for their villainy, or do you like it when they're just mindless?
It depends, because if we go through the ones that, as an examples, you get in The Dark Knight where he's just a mentalist. There's no reason for that Joker in particular to be the way he is. When he comes up with all kinds of bollocks of the reasons why, but at the end of the day, he's just a psychopath. And
yeah.
In that case, does it make him more terrifying because you can't reason with him? Because if you've got a reason for being bad, like you've had a bad childhood or you were tortured like a shoe, then maybe you got something to reach out to. But if you like that, or like a Terminator who's got one job and one job only, and you ain't gonna reason with it, and he will not stop ever. Then that's way more scary. I know we're not talking horror in particular, but from pure villainy point of view, if you've got no rhyme or reason, that's way more scary than if you've got a purpose to what you're doing.
Yeah, I agree with that completely, because the idea, I mean, literally they even say in The Dark Knight, he just wants to see the world burn. Like, he gets all that money and then sets it alight because that's not the end game for him. Like, you're not trying to beat the man as much as you're trying to beat his myth, almost. Like, the legend of the Joker is probably scarier than Arthur Fleck when it comes to, the film Joker, because he's just a man who's down on his luck, and realistically, with, a good mental health service, he should be able to be cured. Whereas Heath Ledger's Joker, he's never going to be cured because all he wants is just to see shit burn.
Yeah. I mean, you go the third one, and if you want to dance with the devil in the pale moonlight. Again, see, I was waiting.
I hate that so much.
So 3 years, it's also predictable. But again, at least he's got a reason for it because he gets disfigured. And he's got a reason for hating someone. He's got a reason to being on the rampage. He was a bastard anyway.
Yeah.
He was a gangster bastard, so that was fine. But when you go psychotic, that's the difference.
Yeah, I think so. It kind of reminds me of like someone like Anthony the Ant Spilotro, is it, in Casino? So Joe Pesci's character, who is just a nut job in that movie. But when you compare that character to someone like Robert De Niro's character in Goodfellas, who is also a bad guy, but you feel like he's a more rounded character. There's more depth to him. And it feels like your Pesci probably gets the bigger headlines when it comes to these movies as a villain, because he does the truly heinous stuff, the stuff that looks horrible. Whereas someone like Robert De Niro's character, he's just in the background pulling the strings, making shit happen, but not necessarily being the one wielding the knife. And I think like there's two kinds of evil bad guy in movies, and one of them is more scary, but probably shouldn't be. Like you should be more scared of De Niro because he's gonna destroy your whole family, whereas Pesci's just gonna destroy you, I think. And I feel like there's a fine line in how you play a bad guy in a movie, somewhat.
Yeah, I mean, if you say bad guy, I mean, you look at its third mention of the year so far, the Goonies and the Fratellis. they stick with you, and
yeah,
they are all bad all of the time, and for no real reason other than being bad people and being villains. But the villains in, again, a kids show at the end of the day, but in a kind of comical, well, it's probably an Italian stereotype, it'd probably be banned now. But they are very villainous, but in a funny way. So you can get it from that point of view as well.
Yeah, I know what you mean. So I think, like we've mentioned Joker, and I did feel like with me and you, I feel there's two characters really who probably would be the best ones for us to discuss in terms of villains. Joker would have been the one, and I feel like Darth Vader is the other one. And Darth Vader's the one where we get the backstory with him. Now, where do you sit with this? Because original Darth Vader, so A New Hope Darth Vader, literally all we knew about him was he was a good guy, and now he's Darth Vader. It wasn't until the second and third and then the prequels that they sort of pad a lot of it out. Do you think that the second film, so Empire Strikes Back, does that take Darth Vader from being a forgettable character to being a legendary character? Does that giving him the background, does that make him so much more than what he was? Because we get this with a lot of the comic book movies that we've had over the last decade or so, that they generally come in, they look cool, they die, we don't see them again, we don't care about them. I feel like Vader could have fallen down that trap, and it was the giving him that backstory that really saved him as a character and made him much more than the sum of its parts.
Yeah, because if you look at A New Hope on its own, he could just be, he's the one in the black costume with the silly walking dustbins and the furry thing. If you break it down to what it actually is, oh well, he's the bad guy. Everyone's saved, hurrah! That's what. Because there's no, there is. I mean, we've watched these films so many times and moaned about them so many times, but they just blur into one at this point, don't they? And you think, actually, I mean, that fight scene is piss poor. Everyone knows it is.
Oh yeah, it's awful. Yeah, there's no.
It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
And so if that's all your legacy is, and that film stays there, then I I think you're talking about. I was going to say Buck Rogers and that kind of thing, but that's not. You know the one I'm on about, the one we've talked about in the past, in the 21st century. That one, the one with Peter Weller, that only I've seen.
Yeah.
You look at.
Cool. I'm going to look at it now. Yeah, Peter Weller.
It should be quite high on his IMDb. It normally is.
It's not Butch and Sundance, no. That's the one. The Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai across the eighth dimension. Yeah,
but that's what it would have been. It would have been as silly as that. I mean, that film is. Everyone should really have seen that film by now. It's utter nonsense, but that's what Star Wars would have stayed as before you had Empire Strikes Back, because you are right. You give him backstory and you make him menacing and you make him like he is and knowing full well about his own son, spoilers, and still not caring. You think, oh yeah, this bloke's insane. And he's also wearing this ridiculous black shiny costume for no real reason at all. And then we find out in the next one why. And does it make him a bit more human? I suppose it does when you see who he really isn't. But for the second one, absolutely. Yeah, because he's nothing without that.
I almost feel like in Empire Strikes Back, they could have put a completely different villain in there, because nothing about Darth Vader from A New Hope really established anything to any great degree that you needed more Darth Vader. They could have just done like Marvel have done so often, where we've jumped from, was it Ironmonger in Iron Man 1 to Whiplash in Iron Man 2 to Hammer in Iron Man 3. We just jump from villain to villain. They could quite easily have done that. And Star Wars, to an extent, sort of has done that post the original trilogy. And I think that's why anything that isn't the original trilogy has sort of felt a little bit cheap and throwaway to me. Because we get one come in, so like we had Darth Maul come in and gets off in the first film. And then we get a bit of Count Dooku in the second one, but he dies early in the third. And just none of the villains really stick around a lot. So there's no one to really butt heads up against. So it feels like long-term storytelling doesn't really matter. It's just, we're telling this story for 2+ hours and then we'll move on to the next one. So I think by sticking with Vader throughout that original trilogy, I do feel that really helps Star Wars grow as well. I feel like by having a villain throughout gave it a proper arc, as opposed to having 3 separate villains.
Yeah. I think they realised a mistake as well, having Darth Maul back in the Clone Wars series. And when you see why, because he's obviously cut in half, and you see him with spider legs that he grafts onto himself, and he's like part mechanical, and then obviously the bit at the end of Solo, which we're never going to see anything else of, which is so annoying, because if it was following on from what happened in Clone Wars, unless it was in the final season or the final series of Bad Batch, which I haven't seen yet, then that was actually something genuinely interesting, because they didn't But did they mess up? I was going to say, did they mess up because at the time, no one really thought anything of him again? And it was only later when he kind of this mythical status and the toys and everything else. No one really cared about Darth Maul at the time.
I think there's a trope with bad guys and villains in films that I feel that Darth Maul very much fits into. He looks cool, but he's a bit inept. And I feel that very much put him into a box. That he had the look, that he wasn't, it's not face painting the thing, isn't that like his actual skin? I don't know the lore of, but yeah.
His brother's a slightly different colour as well.
Okay. So yeah, I feel like, but this seems to be a running thing. Like we see quite often where the bad guy always looks really sleek and smooth, and he's the exact opposite to the villains, who generally tend to be, well, white meat baby faces. They all look a bit average, a bit dull. And that was very much Darth Maul. he looked cool, but it immediately came apart for him when he came up against the good guys. And that really held him back, I think. So, having not seen the Clone Wars, I wonder if they managed to rehabilitate him in that.
Oh, they
because
did.
that's where his mythical status comes from, is because they then gave him the time to grow as a character. Because in the first, he isn't a character; he's a trope, for want of a better word, isn't he?
Yeah, he's not even that. He's more of a henchman.
Yeah, that's exactly it. To be fair, isn't it? He's just. I mean, he could just be a nameless, faceless person. They just happened to give him a name for this.
But it's almost like the opposite effect with Boba Fett. Where you look at him as this. I mean, they've talked about it on Sacred Symbols in the past about this, about how the toys of Boba Fett were cool because he was on screen for like 5 seconds. And he was one of them things, and they made their own stories up behind his backstory in the comics and things and the books from back then. And that's all you had. But then you turn him into the base of a clone and all this kind of bollocks. And oh dear. His dad being, no. Everyone knows. They ruined him. He was ruined. And I remember when I got them Disney Infinity figures and I had that Boba Fett, I was so happy that day. And then they bought Book of Boba Fett out, and it's ruined now. It's all gone. We've got nothing sacred anymore.
I mean, when was Book of Boba Fett? 2022, was it? So it's about 18 months ago, is that right?
Probably, something like that. Might be even longer ago. What were you?
I couldn't tell you a single thing that happened in it now. Thinking back, I've completely scrubbed from my memory.
There was a bit where he kept going in that tank, didn't he? There were flashbacks. The other Mando episodes, which are the best ones.
Well, yeah, I can remember the Mando stuff because that was basically The Mandalorian. That wasn't Book of Boba Fett, was it? But anything that was Fett specific, no, I couldn't tell you anything that happened in it, which is such a damning indictment of a character, as you say, who had legendary status off the being on TV, being on film for 5 minutes, and he was the coolest thing in the world for a short period of time because of it. Yeah, that's one of the cases where more is definitely not good. Like, it was less is more was perfect for him, and then more was just not good. It's a pity, really. So how do you feel then? I think this is a good one to move on to next. About media following the anti-hero rather than the white knight in things. I think Boba Fett's a good one to pick on that because he is an anti-hero, isn't he? Like, he does good, but he's not a good guy.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like in Hollywood previously, before our time probably, maybe even back up into maybe the 90s, Hollywood would very much want it to be black versus white, good versus evil. It was rare that things were shades of grey. But I feel like there has been a change on TV and film where they're happy to play in the grey a little bit more. Like Breaking Bad Breaking Bad definitely isn't the first time we've followed the bad guy in a TV series, at least. But that feels like the moment where we went fully into the grey for me, Breaking Bad, where we were happy to see someone become the villain rather than just becoming the hero of the piece.
Yeah, I think he went from, I remember being in the weeds at the time with it, although you can see he went from people feeling sorry for him and then people absolutely hated him, and then his wife taking all the abuse.
She still gets it. It's like the most hated person on TV. She was just trying to stop him from murdering people, you fucking idiots.
So this guy in a hate club. It's amazing. Yeah, you had the things like The Sopranos and stuff like that, obviously, beforehand, and that comes back to pretty much every Scorsese film ever.
Yeah.
But I like it, though, because you don't want just goody stuff all the time. Like, even things like Loki. They built a whole series about someone who's a bellend. Because, I mean, you try and watch the first Avengers film now, knowing what Loki turns into, and it's kind of comical. I mean, it was comical anyway at the time.
Yeah.
The way he's kind of there with his silly horns and all that kind of stuff. He was quite camp at the time, but you watch it now and you think, yeah, you kind of devalued in a way. And
It's quite hokey, isn't it, looking back?
Yeah. Well, I wrote down a few of these, like things like, but in the last 20 years, or things like that film that Matt made us watch, which I'd never heard of before, Falling Down.
Yeah. It's a good choice, that one is actually, yeah. That fits the bill really well, that it is just a normal guy on his villain origin story almost, isn't it?
Yeah. And you don't really feel sorry for him. You're just thinking, how bad can he possibly get?
I wonder if there's an element of recognition with some of these characters, because we've all had shit days. We've all had days where, we were almost falling down ourselves. We're going postal became the term for it. So I wonder if that helps with an anti-hero, because we're all heroes of our own story. That's very much an established fact, isn't it? And we've all had days where you think, God, I could just, kick the shit out of this, whatever, because you're just so annoyed at the world. I wonder if there is that recognition as to why anti-hero TV and film seems to be more prevalent now than it's ever been, because you can recognise what they've gone through, maybe.
And because people are more angry than ever.
I mean, there is definitely an element of that, isn't there? When you have to spend 10 minutes on Twitter to see people just screaming into the void.
I mean, that has been one thing about this weekend where I've completely avoided. I did have to remove the app from the drawer, so it's still installed on my phone, but I had to remove it from just because the muscle memory just go on there when you turn your phone on. It's in the toilet or whatever. So not going on there for an entire day and a half, really, other than to just comment on one thing which I went searching for. It's been quite nice, not seeing all the madness on there, because I don't care. I don't get wound up by it all anyway. Really, I just poke the bear more than anything else. But it has been quite a calm day, quite liberating not being on there. But maybe that's what we need. Maybe we need a Falling Down 2 based on Twitter/X. That's what starts it all.
Yeah. And I was saying to Matt the other day, like, what benefit does Twitter bring to your life now? Like, I do get wound up looking at stuff, and you see all this hatred directed towards different groups of people, or you see injustice that's being perpetrated by governments and genocide, and it's just constant 24/7, and like, you can't even escape to wrestling Twitter or Wolves Twitter or even fucking film Twitter, because it's just full of hatred spewing constantly. And it just gets to the point you think, like, what benefits? What am I enjoying about this? I don't get it. And I do feel like some days that it's just nice to be completely unplugged from the cesspool that is social media.
Yeah, it was like that. Was it last year when I went dark and you all thought I was dead?
I was worried.
2 days.
Yeah. What film was it you were avoiding spoilers of? I can't even remember now.
It wasn't a good one, was it? Well, a traditional good one that you'd imagine.
I can't even remember what the fuck it was.
No, it was something that I would have had to go looking for if I'd seen spoilers for it.
Yeah.
Was it the last Transformers film? It might have been.
It was like the Beast one.
Yeah.
I can't even remember, but it was literally, we hadn't heard from you in 48 hours, and we was like, what's going on? I'd even messaged like Goldie, Brent Gold, and he's like, have you heard from him? He's like, yeah, he's fine. I'm like, but the messages are going through, what's happening? Yeah, it's terrified.
Well, that happened last week as well. Like when I thought in my head that I've told someone something, and then just gone and done it, and I've actually not told them. Like when on Tuesday when I was went to Burnley, I got back at 1 o'clock in the morning. So I didn't want to be in at 6 o'clock the next day. I thought, well, I'll just go. I'll come in at 6:30 because it doesn't really matter. And I was convinced, because I was talking about how nice it had been going to somewhere different for a change at the week when I went to Lichfield, because I'd never been there before. I went to Lichfield, and it's nice, and there's no litter and no shit or anything like that. It's just nice little city, and I suppose Cathedral is it's bound to be a city. Nice place, loads of pubs, good people, great day out. I said, yeah, you go from that, and then you go 4 days later, you go a Tuesday night in Burnley. But then I thought I said, but I'm going to get back late, so I'm going to come and be in at the old time at half 6. So he got to 6:10, and I was just strolling down the street as per, and a message of a boss saying, "Are you okay?" And I thought, well, yeah, why? She said, "Oh, you're not here?" I went, "Because I'm coming. I'll be here at 6:30. She said, "Oh, okay." I either forgot to say what I thought in my head.
Yeah.
The one I'd said it to, who's not going to listen to this, Tina, it's your fault. She completely forgot as well. So it was just one of them things. And that happens quite a lot. And that's what happened that day as well.
So easily done, isn't it? Terrible. Right, so why do people like bad guys then? So what's the draw of a bad guy?
I think it's kind of what you said. I think it's almost like people have that in. People think that they have that in them, and because they can't do it themselves, they live through the bad guys doing it to other people. So if you got if you want to torture a shoe, i.e. a cat, or like Zuma, who I can't believe he still got booed again.
Always.
There's only a few smatterings, but every time we touched the ball yesterday, it was a few moves. But things like that, where would you really want to push someone through a window? Yes, on many occasions, but you can't do it. And so I think it is that whole thing of a reflection of your own personality or of your own evilness, your internal evilness, that you can't get away with. So you enjoy it, and you look at the origin stories, and you look at the success of Deadpool and things like that. People love this stuff. There ain't many where you think the villain's so bad that they're completely unrelatable. But even when they are, people like it in an ironic way because it winds other people up.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually. I do think there is an element of, I think it's sadomasochism, isn't it, where you like the inflicting of pain on others. And it's masochism is when it's on yourself. I don't know which one's which. It's not my bag, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, that's why Matt's not here.
I do think there is an element of that, though, isn't there? It is that the enjoyment of seeing someone's eyeball being cut open, or what was the one in Hostel where they cut the guy's Achilles tendon and stuff like that? There is that element of, that's horrible, I'd love to do that to so-and-so sort of thing. So I do wonder how big a part that plays in why people like a villain story. And as I said before with Darth Maul, they generally look a bit cooler. Like, what's the one? Fifth Element with Altman playing that role. And it was just that he wanted to play a bad guy because he got to play with the biggest guns was his reason for doing it. And I sort of get it, because there's a cool element with bad guys that you don't get with being the corny or shucks Captain America type, do you?
Well, look at even Jeff Goldblum. He's a little bit anti-hero in Thor Ragnarok.
Yeah. You've got to play like the big campus tits mincing around the stage, having the time of his life.
Yeah. And it puts a smile on your face because they're so dastardly. And
yeah.
But you have to look at things like Grand Theft Auto. You're playing criminals in that. They're not good people.
Especially like the biggest game franchise ever, isn't it? And yeah, you're right. It's
especially the fifth one, where you're playing as fucking Trevor, who's a murderous hillbilly who's got no respect for anyone or anything. Yeah, it's the biggest selling game ever, biggest entertainment package ever. So, I think there is a lot in that where people are living vicariously through the scumbag.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you've just made me think of like the whole God of War series, where you start out as this angry young man who is literally fighting the hordes of the world with, the devil's fucking scythe, killing people and destroying Rome. And then, like, eventually he grows and changes. But you have to go on that journey with him. Like, you start off enjoying, putting your thumbs through people's eye sockets and stuff like that, and you do grow with that character. they do really play on your recognition of the horribleness of the world, I think. And I think that is a very good point as to why people like bad guys. Because everyone, I think, fancies themselves as a bit of a villain occasionally. Like everyone wants to be able to just put someone's head in a vice or, rip off a bank to the tune of a couple $1 million sort of thing. They want that. They want to get the good side of being a bad guy occasionally, I think.
I mean, I kind of get it. I mean, if you just go on at like a tiny little microcosm of the world where on a smaller podcast, all's fan, where I'm probably the most villainous and hated person on there. If you go on correspondence and DMs and stuff that I get on a constant basis, do I know that I'm doing it? Yes, of course I do. But it's funny, and obviously it's not real life. But is there a pleasure in winding people up like that? Yeah, because there is. I'm not doing anything. I'm not doing any real harm. But I'll play up to a caricature of myself because I know it will get a reaction. So if it comes from it on a small scale such as that, then I can quite easily say, oh yeah, if you're going to rob, the whole fascination with Ronnie Biggs and the great train robbery and stuff like that, why that was such a, everyone loved them. They're fucking armed criminals, scumbags.
Yeah.
But, because you're taking from the man, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, even though people died. Like, there's the romance of it all, isn't there, which feels kind of awful. So ultimately then, what makes a good bad guy for you?
Someone who's relatable in a way that's got a hint of anarchy about them, but at the same time, a little bit of camp as well. That would be the ideal bad guy. Almost like Goldfinger or Jaws or something like that from a Bond film. Well, we might as well just say Dr. Evil at this point, but yeah, so something like that.
That's exactly it, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that is the best bad guy. Well, we'll save that for next week. That might change, kids, but yeah, for me, someone who's you got the 2 points of view. You got the one who's threatening, who doesn't stop, who you can thoroughly hate and have nothing in common with. But on the other side of the spectrum, you got the one who's doing things for slightly dodgy reasons, but you can see their point of view. They're not taking themselves all that too seriously, and they don't really care what they're doing. A bit like John Travolta in Face Off, a bit of a twat. But at the same time, they're doing stuff that you think, yeah, we all work with people like this. You want to put the head in the shredder.
I do agree to an extent, like, especially the camp thing. We haven't really touched on that, but there is something about the archness of a good villain. Like, they have to be a little bit campus tits, like Alex in A Clockwork Orange, dancing around, singing in the rain. And there is that element of showmanship that you get with a villain. And I think the best ones really lean into it and make themselves so much larger than life. They're the best villains for me, the ones who, they do the bad things, but they want to make sure everyone knows about it. There's a song and dance that goes with it. I mean, that's why I love the dentist in Little Shop of Horrors. So Oren Scrivello is one of my all-time favourite characters in musicals and cinema. I just love him because it is literally a song and dance with his villainy, and it's perfect because of it. That's one thing I like in a bad guy, definitely.
It just reminded me, and this is, I mean, this will be on the list for next week, so I won't say the list, but I'll show you the picture.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely perfect. Mental.
Yeah.
Stupid costume. Slightly insane. Incredibly camp.
Yeah. It's got to be done, I think. And another one that I really like, No Country for Old Men. So Anton Chigurh, I mean, he's just a psychopath. That's very much his thing. He's not showy with it, but everything he does is so meticulous and calculated. There's almost a campness to it. Like, you know, when it goes right through being ultra straight to the point that it's a bit camp, That's how far he's gone through the spectrum. He's gone right back to the start with it all. And I like that. That's my kind of villain, someone who really shows out. That's the perfect kind of bad guy for me.
What was his name? It's more anti-hero than bad guy, I suppose. In Sin City, Mickey Marv, yeah. Marv. You wouldn't go for a pint with him, would you?
Oh God, no. But in Sin City, the first one, that yellow bastard, like, he's such a fucking good villain in it as well. And he's utterly despicable. Like, he's just horrible. He makes your skin crawl, but he's a good villain as well. It's such a shame that the second Sin City bored me to tears.
Yeah, I didn't like it.
I remember, I can't remember who I was with, but I remember saying to them, is this shit over yet? Because I was so bored. So halfway through the film, I was like, this needs to end. It was so bad. So are there any TV films that you can recommend that would be an exploration of villainy? I mean, Breaking Bad, I feel like is probably the one, really, where we get to see the origin story played out till the very end. Is there anything else that you think is a good exploration?
I think the best one, more the series than the films, Hannibal.
Okay.
And it did finish really well as well, that series.
I've never seen these, so talk to me about it. Is Hannibal the story of him pre-Silence of the Lambs, and then we get the films, or is he not quite like that? How does it work?
The series is not based on the films. Well, it's not in the same universe as the films. Put it that way. I thought for a long time that it was a prequel, but there's stuff in there that contradicts itself. So I just take it as its own thing, and just watch it on its own. I mean, it makes you hungry looking at the flesh that he's preparing. That's the biggest problem with it.
That's not good.
But that, and which is incredibly in the top 10 on Netflix now that it's on there for out of nowhere, Dexter, which I've talked about for years anyway. That, yeah, he went shit for a bit, but then he came back. And then the one that they brought back 10 years after it finished to round it all off was excellent in its own way. Yeah. I mean, I do. The first Hannibal film, the Hannibal the film, I was one of them ratings that I took great pride in beating the system for that one. To get in to watch that, and I actually do like that film quite a lot. But what about Bad Lieutenant? We talked about that for a while.
I mean, he's one of my favourite bad guys. One of my favourite bad guy Nick Cage performances, like, by quite a long stretch. He's wonderful in that movie. And he's a villain. He's not even an anti-hero, is he? He's just a bad guy, yeah. He's just horrible. And he doesn't really have a reason to. He's just a shit who wants to get more high. That's literally all he is. Just wants to get a bit higher and fuck a few more birds. And that's all he wants in his life. And it's like, okay. But yeah, that's a really good film that's centered around a bad guy. I hadn't even considered that one.
And little dragons for no reason at all.
The two that I've got on my list, the most recent Suicide Squad film, I thought was a good look, because obviously they are a team of bad guys, and it's about the redemption of some of them and the further downfall of one of their members, and then the subsequent Peacemaker TV series. I think is a very good accompaniment to follow it on. We should be getting number 2 start filming early next year, I've heard. So we might get season 2. Or I don't know if it'll be season 2 or if it'll be season 1. Again, I don't know if they're restarting it, but we should be getting something by the end of next year, apparently. But yeah, I think that's a really good look at heroes and villains. I think you see the characters going in both ways and learning and changing and growing. And what was the other one I had on my list? It was... Just bear with me.
I mean, with Peacemaker, you've got his relationship with his dad as well, who is...
Yeah.
So that's a perfect version of what does make a villain.
Yeah, it really is. I can't find the other one I put on this bloody list that I was going to say. No, I might just have to cut that bit out. American Psycho, Patrick Bateman.
Oh, yeah.
I think, yeah. That's a guy who is a normal guy, or is he a normal guy? And it's the whole two sides of the one, or two sides within the one character fighting for supremacy. Is it? Maybe. We don't know. And I think that's what makes it so interesting is there's no real answer to it. It feels like it's the duality of man without wanting to sound too wanky, fighting inside someone. And I really like that about it, that I suppose everyone has that internal battle to do good or do bad because it's easier sort of thing to get ahead. So I think American Psycho is another good one to look at in those terms.
I mean, just for the fact that the sales of metal coat hangers plummeted afterwards.
Yeah. But I mean, that's the film I love anyway. And I think I will be disappointed if they remake it.
Yeah, I ain't watching it. No.
I don't feel like it doesn't need a remake, does it? And I saw someone on Twitter saying the other day they should remake bad films, not good films. And I'm kind of for that, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I've said it many times on here that remakes don't bother me really because they're remaking it to sell it again. And we always have our original version of it that's ours.
Yes.
So I don't really care. When the Disney ones, when I almost got suckered in, but it wasn't on April 1st. It was later that someone had mocked up a live action version of Cars. I thought, absolutely fuck off. No way. No, not a chance. It was just it was someone playing the fool.
That reminds me, I've just remembered what the other one that I was going to mention is. The Incredibles. The first Incredibles.
Yeah.
How Syndrome goes from being the sidekick to the villain. I think that's a really good look at how villains are created. So obviously a very, for a younger audience. I feel like that shows how little things can happen in your life that can knock you off the path that you are. I think that's a really good film to show the villains as well.
Yeah. Oh, I'd never even think about that. And that was another one. Incredibles 2 was awful.
It was very, very, it's just a film.
Yeah.
When the first one is so good, this was just so middle of the road. It was, I was really let down with that because I love the first one. It's a classic.
They're the real villains who made that.
Yeah, absolutely. Right then, that's us done this week. Next week, as I said, we'll be giving our top 5 villains. Send us what you think are the best and the worst, whichever way you look at it, of bad guys. We're on Twitter at CageFightingPod and TikTok and YouTube and socials in general. So yeah, get in contact. Any emails, cagefightingpod@gmail.com. I think that's everything, isn't it? I don't think there's anything else to say this week. Oh yeah, the Swede Caroline, April 19th. Make sure you go and see that when it's out at the cinema. So for this week, Stu, would you like to say goodbye?
Yeah, goodbye, everyone. Go and watch that. It really is a very fun time.
And it's goodbye from me, and remember, be excellent to each other.